Hello, I'm Dorothy Gracilla and I'm here to present my assignment 2. The outline of this presentation are abstract data types, advanced manipulations, definition of an operating system, basic operating system concepts, processor management, memory management, and file management. So the abstract data type, so in assembly language, it provides a set of primitive data types by which other structured data types can be built on. So in defining a data type items, so for example, in table below, so below are the data type like a character, boolean, integer, long integer, real, string, and pointer. And then these data types uh, occupies a space in the memory, like a character can have a 1 byte, boolean occupies 1 byte. And then an example of this declaration in assembly language, like a character like ch, boolean, okay, integer as a number, or long integer as long. So let us discuss several abstracts of data types. So a set is a high-level abstract data type. So it can have an enumerated type, like type of colors can have a value of green, blue, red, or white. Or it can be a set data type, like a color set can be uh, uh, a set of colors. And then this set you can assign a variable to the color set, like variable C assigned to the color set. So in the enumerated type, it can be mapped as equates, which is in a multiples of 2. For example, we can have red assign a value of a variable can be assigned an equate of 1, and then green can have an equate of 2. These are um, uh, are given set of values as a declaration for the set of values of colors. Next, array. So arrays is a structured data type that contains elements of similar types. So data items are accessed through an index which specifies the location of an array. So below is an example of how an array is declared in Pascal. Record. A record is a structured data type whose items can have different data types. For example, a person record. So uh, a record can have two values, like a name, which is string, and age, which is in bytes or in integer. So in this person record, can you assign the value of variable p? In advanced manipulations, so these are the techniques in writing efficient programs. First are the memory map data controls. So here, data are controlled in a specific memory location. For example, the B800H is the text mode video screen. So data in this location is immediately shown on the screen by the video hardware. Next is the direct port access. So this way, hardware connected to the CPU through the port. So the port addresses are used for in and out instructions. So port addresses can be statically written in the instruction or can be placed in the DX part of the memory, and then this port address can be any value from 00H to 400H, wherein specific port addresses are assigned to specific devices. Operating system. So an operating system is a set of procedures for driving the resources of the system. So when the CPU boots up, the instruction register contains the address of the program to be executed in the read-only memory, or the ROM. And then once executed, it commands the computer to load more program to the disk operating system. Then those controls the screen and keyboard interface with the user. The operating system acts as resource manager for the users of the PC, so it lends the device to the users when requested. So parts of the operating system program which are often used or often requested by the user stays in the memory. we call them as a memory resident, while the other parts which are swapped with in and out of the memory, these are non-memory residents. So services rendered by the operating system. So there can be convenient input-output operations. This is driving the peripherals, or it can also provide fault monitoring, like logging the errors and proceeds to the next program. And it can OS can also have multiple access, wherein multiple users usage, and then the file system. This is the file directory and security on each of users' files. So notice when you log on to your computer, so each user are given a folder into the the operating system assign a folder to each user. So in the multi-programming capability of the OS allows the OS to be efficient by allowing multiple processes to run instead of waiting for which one to finish. So let us discuss the evolution of the operating system. So at first, the first programs were written in machine code or punch cards or punch paper tapes. So which are then fed into the computer. Then the punch cards or tape are amended until they are executed correctly. So the example is a diagram of example of a punch card. Then the operating system then are only single user and interactive. So and then the programming next to the evolution is the programming in machine language. Programming in machine language is difficult. Thus, software like assemblers, loaders, and linkers, and libraries for common functions were introduced along with the card readers, line printers, and the magnetic tapes. And then, batch operating systems are developed, which compose of supervisor programs and jobs. Then the role of the supervisor program is to have instructions where to read the compilers, linkers, loaders for specific programs. Then one job is for batching or grouping of similar jobs for faster execution. In the earlier batch systems, jobs are executed in sequence and does not proceed to the next task until the current input-output operation is done. Then this wastes a lot of CPU time, thus multi-programming is produced. In multi-programming, memory is divided into several partitions, and one program is loaded into each of the partition. When a program in a partition waits for an input-output, the CPU loads to another program from another partition. Thus, the CPU does not become idle. So, besides multi-programming, there is also a time sharing which was introduced. So, what is the concept of time sharing? So, in time sharing, a user is given only a specific time in control of the CPU, and then the control is handed over to another user. Then the user waits for the next share of time to use the CPU. In large mainframe computers have been replaced with personal computers and workstations. Now, network operating system, this allows personal computer users to access resources not local to them by sending requests for services through a network operating system. Another type of operating system is a distributed operating system. So in this system, several computers are connected to a network, but the user can view them as one. But in actual, these are physically separate computers. Let us discuss some basic operating system concepts. What is a process? So a process is a unique execution of a program with a specific set of data. Thus, when a program is executed, it creates a process and scales one or more different processes, which is a duplicate of itself. Next, interrupt. Interrupt is an event which causes the normal execution of instructions to be altered. So when an interrupt occurs, the CPU control is transferred from the current process to another process. An interrupt can have there can be different conditions when the interrupt happens. This can be completion of an input-output operation, or there is an error in the process currently being executed, or there could be an arrival of messages from another system, or an arrival of data from other input-output devices. Next, device driver. What is a device driver? So a device driver is a low-level program written specifically to control an input-output device, for example, a printer or a mouse, so which is driven in assembly language or systems programming language like C that accesses the hardware via privileged instructions. Supervisor calls. What is a supervisor calls? So this is an instruction from which the use this is an instruction which from the user to access parts of the system's area of the memory. So a memory is divided into two. So one is for the system's area and the other is for the user's area. So that the system's area contains the system's codes and buffers, while the user areas contains the user's programs and buffers. So systems areas are off limits to users unless this is accessed through a supervisor call or privilege call, or so a supervisor call is executed which causes an interrupt. So you are handing over the control of the system area to the user when it uses a supervisor call. Then the user executes the system code requested and returns to the instruction. What are modes of execution? So modes of execution is when the bit program status word PSW is set to 0. So in which case the execution is in supervisor mode or interrupt disabled mode. So when the PSW is 0, interrupt cannot happen. Then the CPU cannot be interrupted on the current process. So that's when PSW is set to 0. Then when the PSW is set to 1, this is in execution in user mode, wherein the interrupt can happen. So in this mode, CPU will entertain any interrupt when executing the current process. Multiprogramming. So in multiprogramming, this allows several users to use the system. So in a context switching, so switching of control between processes is allowed. So when this happens, the previous states of the process must be saved so that when the control is returned back to the process, it can continue the previous processing. In the multiprogramming, there are different ways. Like one is buffering. So buffering is reading the input before it is actually processed. So the input which has been read is stored in the buffer area of the memory. Then double buffering prevents the loss of data provided the processing rate is faster than the input rate. Next is spooling. So spooling is used for heavily used input-output devices. So spooling disk is allocated for the device. Files in this space are placed in a spooling directory by the spooler. Then only the daemon of the device can process the files from the spooling directory. Next, time sharing. So time sharing, each users or processors are given equal amount of time to take control of the CPU. Now, when the hardware clock generates an interrupt, that's when the user consumes its time share. Okay. When a program is executed, it creates a process. Now, in a multi-programming system wherein several processes are involved, there has to be a management system so that the CPU won't get confused which one to run first. A process can be in any of the following states. It can be in ready, run, or block state. What are these states? So when the process is in ready state, it is ready to take control of the CPU. Now when it is in the run state, it is currently running or it is currently in control of the CPU. Now when it is in a block state, the process cannot run due to several reasons. Due to any of the following reasons. It could be waiting for an input-output completion, or it can be waiting for a particular time of day, or it could be waiting for a message from another process. A process can either be normally or abnormally terminated. So when we say a process normally terminates, now it is terminated through a termination statement in its program. Now when a process is terminated abnormally, it is the time when it is forced to terminate by the operating system due to some unrecoverable error, like it could be a bound violation, arithmetic error, invalid instruction, and could be any other reason. Now, to optimize the performance of the CPU, a CPU scheduling is in place. So the scheduling is done by the dispatcher. Now, the CPU scheduling allocates the CPU to optimize its performance. So the benefits of this are for the CPU to have a good response and turnaround time. It meets the user deadlines. And it is for high CPU utilization, meaning the CPU doesn't become idle for a long period of time. It is also a good utilization of other resources. Now, CPU can be shared by a set of processes, as we discussed earlier. So as a result of CPU scheduling, CPU utilization, and response times are improved. Now, there is a problem in determining which process in the ready state should take over the CPU. Now, this is a task of the memory manager. So that to determine which ready processes should be allocated the amount of memory for the CPU to process. Now, when a program is in ready state, it is loaded now into the memory for the CPU to process, and the memory manager manages those processes to take on which one to load the process first, so that the system will not be chaotic. Now, the CPU manager and the memory manager has to complement each other to attain the overall good performance of the computer. Now, in a time-sharing system, system are given specific time slots to take over the CPU. So they're given a fixed amount of time. Now, a process in the block state, when it is time for it to process, it's time for it to take over the CPU, but this process is in the block state, meaning it cannot run because it's waiting for let's say it's waiting for an input-output completion. So some of the reasons that we mentioned earlier when the process is in block. Therefore, that process in the block state, which is occupying the memory, because it's time to do the processing, it has to exchange place with another process who is already ready, who is actually ready to run. So this is called swapping. So this is done to reduce the degradation in response time of the CPU. Of course, when a process is in block state, it cannot run. Thus, it will render the CPU idle for its time during time sharing system. So that's why it's swapping with another process. Yeah. Now, of course, since several processes are accessing the memory, there has to be some protection for the memory. So the memory protection can be achieved by allowing a user to process its own address space only in the memory, while the operating system can access any part of the memory, meaning when a user user process is running, it is only running on a specific area of the memory. Now, this memory protection can be implemented through either automatic address translation, page or page one addressing, or with the use of a base and limit integers. Oh, so now we're moving to the file management. So you know that the system now computer has a file system. Now how the files are organized is um, it should be in such a way that could be appealing and easy to use by the users. So meaning the folder should be um, standard for the and easy to for the users to not get lost within the file system. So this can be achieved by providing high-level operations on files. This is in the create file. And then protect files for each user, meaning limiting access to the folder by specific owner. Remember I mentioned earlier that when the user logs on into the system, you are created a folder. So that folder is only accessible to you, except for when the user is a administrator, when the administrator has access to all the files into file system of the users who has login or used the computer. Next is file management can be achieved also um, in through reliability. So this means that even in an abnormal termination of a process, the file should be retrievable and cannot be corrupted. Maybe you encounter this when sometimes your computer shuts down or it hanged and you have to restart your machine. Now, when you go back, when you log back in, you are prompted that certain processes, like say your file wasn't you were asked to recover, let's say your file in Word, which you were not able to save before the computer hangs or shuts down. Those types of scenarios. And also, fast access to files. There are certain, there is a feature which you are given a shortcut to the files, recently accessed files. You are given a shortcut to read through the start menu there. And also, another management of the files, of course, it has to have some properties, meaning it has to have a name, a location on the secondary storage, that's the length of file or the size, the type access allowed, if you're given a read or read write or read only or full access, and the owner and date of creation or modification of the file. Files in the system are stored in the file directory. One that is the folders. Now, there are plenty of operations that can be done on a file. You can create a file, you can write on it, you can read, you can navigate through it, rewind, you can delete, you can append information, you can modify or copy contents, you can rename a file, you can list the contents of the file to an output device, as well as open and close to perform some open and close the file so that you can read, edit, modify it. There. To add convenience to the file system, it has to have a level of protection also. It has to enable sharing of files to specific users by granting different access. Like it could be another user can have a read-only access to your file, or you can grant them full access. Full access meaning they can edit it, they can delete your file. That's the full access. Now, three of the most popular file protection are file naming, passwords, accessing, when you can add, set up a password to open a file, and also the access control. Access control is, files which are saved in your folder cannot be accessed by other users who log in to the computer. File system reliability is also important. It is the protection of files from being corrupted, as mentioned earlier, due to system failure and errors of system software. So I've already mentioned that earlier. There. Okay, that ends my presentation for today. Thank you and good day.